Welcome everybody to another episode of the Talking with Heroes talk show program. I am Bob Calvert, the founder and host of Talking with Heroes. For those of you who might not have our website addresses, talkingwithheroes.com, and we have a news site where all of our recent audio and video programs you can find out about, listen, or watch, and that is thankyoufforyourservice.us. And for those of you who have been watching those recent programs, with mywarriorsplace.org, freedomservicedogs.org, projectsanctuary.org, amazing people that we met at these events that you can watch on the videos on our YouTube page. And but today, actually for the next few days, we're on the road again. My good friend Eric Chia, who's here sitting next to me, many of you who have been following Talking with Heroes for years, because we've been doing this now for over 10 years, on and off, you've either heard the name Eric Chia or seen his name on programs, on credits. Eric, when I first started this, matter of fact, we were talking yesterday with my daughter, because they're here too. He remembers me calling him when my daughter, back in 2002, early 2002, she enlisted in the Army. Up north of the river here in the Kansas City, Missouri area. Totally took me by surprise, and I called Eric, and I remember him saying, "She's doing what?" That is like, this is a little girl here, right? And of course, she went in the Army, and I had no idea that I'd end up doing a talk show like this for over 10 years. But Eric brought us into Kansas City because we have some really neat people that we're going to do video programs with. This is the first segment, and Eric, just thank you for bringing us in, and we're going to do a whole new segment with you, though. Yeah, we're going to find out a lot more about you now, on video this time. Okay, and you have some companies?
Yeah, we do. I have a couple of companies that I work with and work for, and we'll be talking a little bit more about it.
Okay, and then we're also, one of the last episodes we're going to do is with a group, one of the members of r4alliance.org, Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing. They're nationwide. It's Project Healing Waters, it's phwff.org. Michael Davis, and I believe the other veteran's name is Bruce. I haven't talked to him yet, but we're going to meet at Shawnee Mission Lake?
Shawnee Mission Lake, yep,
okay,
that's
and
right.
We're going to talk about fly fishing.
That's right.
Okay. All right, well, Eric, well, thank you. And folks, you'll hear a lot more about Eric here on the next video episode. And what we're going to do now is we're going to bring up here Colonel Rich Graham, and personal friends of Eric. And by the way, we're at the church
Indian
here.
Creek, yeah, we're at Indian Creek Community Church here. So.
Right, which I attended service this morning, and we've got a couple of people here we're going to talk with that are members.
Okay.
Great, okay. So here we go. Hello, Colonel.
How are you, sir?
How you doing?
Very
Thank
good.
you for your service to our country.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And just met you a little earlier, less than an hour ago.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to hear about your career and many things you told me. And so let's start out, tell people a little bit about yourself and how long you've served.
I've been in Army Reserve for 32 years. Actually, I just finished my 31st year. I'm in my 32nd year. I did it after my freshman year of college, when I decided I needed a little bit of self-discipline and better grades. So I've just been doing it ever since. Had no intention of making it a career, but I did. I've been all over the world, and I've seen things, good and bad, and I wouldn't have traded for the world.
Sure. Now, you've had numerous deployments. Was Bosnia your first deployment?
Actually, my very first deployment was Iraq.
Oh, okay.
2005 till January of 2006. I was at the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force in Balad, supporting the Special Operations Forces, the two task forces that were over there doing the counterterrorism and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Had an interesting experience. Shortly before I was due to redeploy, maybe the last 30 days, 25 days I was there, I had gone up, I took $25,000 up to go pay for a well that we were having dug in a small village near Syria called Sinjar. Myself and my combat camera guy came up. We flew up to Mosul, and they used to do what they called milk runs. Every night they would fly the helicopters, would go visit, 2 or 3 or 4 fobs, and they just a milk run, just like delivering the milk, right? Well, we got up there, and they weren't doing those anymore. They were doing, you had a special manifest flight, and if they had enough people, then they'd go to a certain location. So I got up there, and this was the first week of January. Like I said, I was due to redeploy at the end of January. It was mid-50s. It was bright and sunny and beautiful, and so I put my name down on a manifest for a flight, which actually wasn't going to occur then for the second day, 2 days later. So the next day we were just going to hang out and visit the local shops and all that on the base. Mm-hmm. Well, I woke up and it was maybe 40 degrees and raining, and just soggy and miserable out, and I started getting a sore throat. And by that evening, I had just a full-blown head cold that was driving me. I mean, it was bad. Yeah. You know what it's like when you get sick, and then when you're traveling, it's even worse. Well, I went to dinner. The combat camera guy that was with me didn't bring any wet weather gear. So I said, you stay here in your hooch, and I'll bring you back, a to-go tray, and you don't have to worry about it. And I'll go up, I'll pay the guy for the well, because it's going to be miserable. There's not going to be anybody there to take pictures of or document it. So I'll just go, pay for the well, come back, we'll consider it done. It's okay. So I went to dinner, took it back to him. I was standing on a wooden pallet in front of his CHU, a containerized housing unit, right? Small metal box that we lived in. And I was standing there on the pallet, knocked on the door, gave him his dinner, and said, just go ahead and eat, and I'll just see you tomorrow. We'll head back to Balad after it's over and call it done. Well, he said, Roger, sir, shut the door. I was a major at the time. Shut the door, and I felt a hand push me. I'm not even lying. I was standing on that wooden pallet. I felt 4 fingers push right here on my chest. And I lost my balance. I stepped back. And when I stepped back, I stepped in the only water puddle in the entire country of Iraq, I think. And so the water went up about to my knee, totally soaked my boot, my socks. I had extra uniforms. I had extra socks. I didn't have extra boots.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to go up at like midnight that night to start the flight process. Fighting this head cold all day. I was miserable. I didn't fall. The wind didn't blow me. I felt 4 fingers push me. I lost my balance. I stepped back in this water puddle. And I decided that, I was doing this, just for one last, before I went home, contribute one last thing to the effort. But at that point, I decided, since we fly with the windows open, so the guns are out.
Right.
And it was probably at, 180 miles an hour. It's, 25, 30 degrees maybe. With the chest cold and everything I was dealing with, I wasn't going to mess with it. Nope. Yeah. So I went up to the jock, and I told the captain, I said, scratch me from the manifest. I'm not going. It's not worth it. So I'm going to go back, take some cough medicine or whatever, and sleep. And so did that. Went back to my room, fell asleep. Woke up the next morning. It was nice weather. My head cold was completely gone. I don't know how that happened, but never get over a cold that fast.
Yeah, maybe there was a reason you weren't supposed to go.
Yeah, because the helicopter I was manifest on crashed and they all died.
Okay. So
every single person died.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But you weren't on it.
I wasn't on it. God wasn't done with me yet.
So you didn't really see
anybody. I wouldn't
anybody
be sitting here with
pushing.
you today. No, there was nobody there.
Oh my gosh. We're sitting in church and I'm having goosebumps on this one. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So there was more for me to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe this is it.
Yeah, I was on only one of my trips over there was the rain, and that was it. But we were through the sandstorms, what amazed me is I never saw anybody with masks, and I got sick from it. I mean, it gets in your lungs and your sinuses, and it was terrible. You could hardly see.
Right.
And we were stuck there for a while. It was in Anbar Province too, because obviously helicopter can't fly.
Mm-hmm.
Then add to that the burn pits, right?
Yep.
that's a whole nother issue. We're going to be talking more about, because I know recently there's been articles coming out about the burn pits. They're realizing that they've got to go back on all these men and women who serve by burn pits and examine them.
There's a registry. There's National Burn Pit Registry.
Yeah.
You go through, and I can't remember if it requires a CAC card or not, but there is a registry. So I've registered and I've filled out the questionnaire. Not cleared, but I've included it in my other post-deployment physicals. Yes, there was a huge burn pit in Balad, and yes, we smelled it, and depending on which direction the wind was blowing, 24/7 you could smell it.
Nauseating.
Yeah.
My son-in-law's been on the waiting list for 7 months.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I just contacted a congressman in Colorado, and I was amazed he responded, Congressman Lamborn.
Mm-hmm.
And those waiting lists are not acceptable. No way.
Yeah.
But it's a reality, though.
That's
Unfortunately,
right.
You always have to go through it. Okay, so you had your Iraq deployment, you were in Bosnia, and you were in Afghanistan twice.
Yep, went to Afghanistan in 2009 as a deputy director for information operations for the headquarters, U.S. Forces Afghanistan. It was a short tour. I was a temp fill, if you will, while they were waiting for the RFF deployments. So anyway, I was there for roughly 4 months, 2009. I went back in February of 2011. I was at Camp Warehouse for 9 months. I led a team of, it's called the Human Terrain System, and I had a team of 4 civilians. We went out, we worked for the Turkish general, who was the commander of RC Capital. We would go out, and so the Turks were not doing combat operations. They were only doing humanitarian assistance. They had adopted a couple of schools that they had a number of projects that they had done for a soccer field, I think a well just for the school, for a water supply. We went out to that school several times and interviewed the kids. They had boys there up until I think about maybe 5th grade, and then from 6th grade on through 12th grade it was girls. So they called it a girls' school even though there was boys there at the elementary age. And we asked them questions about doing sociocultural research. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do your parents think about education? And a variety of responses. One girl wanted to be a helicopter pilot. Wow. She saw the helicopters all the time flying around. One girl wanted to be the prime minister. A lot of kids wanted to be journalists. But that was the number one response, journalists.
Interesting.
Because what they were getting on TV was what they had never gotten before, right? Information.
Right.
A number of them wanted to be teachers, and a number of them, journalists, teachers, and doctors were the top 3. But they ran the gamut, everything, you know. We went to, they had a Turkish hospital there, a clinic, that they had walk-in hours for the local Afghans, and they would come. We talked to some people that traveled hundreds of miles to come to this clinic because it was free, because it was first world medicine dispensed by the Turkish government, Turkish military providing it. There was kids there, you met my granddaughter earlier. There was kids there her age, and they were unclean. The hygiene is very poor. They would have broken fingers or hands or arms. They would just be disfigured physically from either an ailment or an injury. And I didn't hear one kid cry the whole time I was there. But they would go in, get health care, get nutrition, get vitamins, minerals, shots, preventive medicine, those kind of things. It was a very interesting experience. We were outside the wire all the time. We had a couple missions that got canceled because it was too hot where we were going. Like I said, I worked for the Turkish brigadier, and he didn't want oh wow, this is going out on the internet. So this is 5 years ago. But he didn't want his vehicles targeted, so he asked me not to wear my uniform. Which, I mean, the commander said, here's my policy, and so I follow it. So I wore civilian clothes, and that way people wouldn't see a U.S. Army
Right.
uniform in a Turkish vehicle because they had Turkish stickers on them. And my assumption is, and I would have done the same thing, hey, you're Muslim, we're Muslim, don't shoot at us kind of a thing. We're not here doing combat operations,
Right.
we're helping
here
the
to help.
people. And so, that said, we had bullet holes in the vehicles sometimes, and we weren't always in armored vehicles, but the armored vehicles looked exactly like the unarmored vehicles.
Well, back then you were mostly in the regular Humvees that weren't even.
Oh, no.
Some of them weren't even up armored.
No. These were all Land Cruisers,
Oh, they were
Toyota Land Cruisers.
Oh yeah.
The only time I rolled in U.S. military vehicles, I went with a U.S. convoy. One of the National Guard divisions that was over there was out doing a humanitarian assistance mission, and so we were in MRAPs and rolled out
Okay.
and did some work there. And of course, that's full uniform and body armor and everything. That was the only time I went out. Every time I flew with the general, because I was, as a lieutenant colonel, I was on his staff. I was the only American. Wasn't the only American. I was a senior American, so I was also the senior national military representative. But there were liaisons from other commands that were there. And when we flew, we didn't fly all armored up and everything. We just flew in uniform or civilian clothes, which was kind of nice.
Sure.
It was an interesting experience, though.
Yeah, it was fascinating to me to go out on these, like you said, humanitarian missions. That was our focus, is showing what you all were doing to help people in both countries. And I thought when you said a Turkey hospital, but I think it was an Egyptian hospital in Bagram that we got to go in. And I saw similar to what you're saying. I mean, nobody's complaining, and you look at them and you know they got problems. But they just, I'll be honest with you, I never thought about much about that until you just said that.
Very stoic, very,
Yeah. Yeah, the people are really nice. I came away with, I mean, they're humans just like us.
That's right.
Just different religion. They're in a part of the country where there's so much bad stuff going on.
Well, we're concerned about what's on TV tonight or how soft our chairs are.
Yeah.
They're just worried about survival.
Yeah, and the heat is unbelievable. I remember Iraq, it was like 140 degrees out, and I was in the USO, and I think it was Milan, matter of fact. But anyway,
Could be.
We were watching TV, and somebody back home was on the news complaining about it was 101 degrees, and you could just hear the laughing going right through the group of soldiers, even the civilians that were sitting there.
Yeah.
Going, really? Why don't you come over here?
Yeah.
Find really heat, because that's bad, 140 degrees.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So you've been around the world, and you're close to retirement now.
Yep. Next year, almost exactly a year. 363 days, I think.
So now, being in reserves, you have a regular job too.
I do.
Right.
So as a civilian, I work at H&R Block. I'm in the security department. Good company to work for. One of the things I've heard since I don't know how old. I mean, little bitty, whatever. There's two things you have to do until you die: breathe and pay taxes, right? So we've got one of those covered. So yeah.
There you go. Talk about your family a little bit, because obviously all those years of service and the deployments. Talk about how that affected them, because people hear about people in deployed, but a lot of people have been affected by military at all. They don't know how that the families are serving too.
Oh yeah, and it is hard on them. It's challenging. I know that last time when I was in Afghanistan, while I was there, Olathe had a huge storm, and it ended up she needed to get the roof replaced. I don't know how much damage it was, $30,000-$40,000 or something like that. And there she is with the kids, are much younger at the time, 5 years from now, younger, and she's got all this damage on the house that she's got to coordinate with the insurance company, and USA deals exclusively with military, so they're used to people being deployed, and so they were helpful. The contractors that she had to go through, and then she's like, I would call her with Skype on the internet on my laptop, and I felt bad because she's she's telling me all these things, and I'm like, as guys, we just want to, here's the answer and here's how we solve the problem, kind of a thing.
There wasn't much you could do.
There was nothing I could do.
Yeah, it's hard.
So yeah, and then it's hard. It's probably just as hard coming home, and then reintegrating, right? Before you go, when you're here, you've got your roles. You mow the lawn, you pay the bills, and she does the laundry or dishes, whatever those roles are, and then you deploy, and the family that's left, they have to fill in that void.
Right.
Everything you were doing, they've got to now account for, and so they can get used to doing that. And then you come home, and you want to step back into the role that you had, and yet that's being filled now. And so, my wife, it was a challenge reintegrating, because she's like, wait a minute, I'm now wearing this hat, kind of a thing, and I'm like, well, the hat's mine, give it back. And so there could be struggles on who wears that hat, right?
Right.
So it's challenging while you're gone. It's challenging when you come back, and it takes years to overcome that and kind of settle back in. And then about that time, you redeploy to a different mission. So.
Right. I remember the last trip over there with Kansas National Guard, we were talking about this agricultural development team.
Mm-hmm.
But the only one that I was with, actually, that invited me to the reintegration, where they were, I guess it's not graduating, but they're on the end of that.
Right.
Families were there, and everybody just looked tired. I mean,
It is tiring.
yeah.
I mean, the travel is tiring. The work days while you're there are long. You're drained emotionally. You're drained spiritually. You're drained physically. And then when you come back, there's a burst of excitement about being home. There's a burst of energy. But then, because of some of the issues in reintegrating and figuring out the roles and all those things, that initial euphoria can turn, very frustrating very quickly. And then so, now you're carrying that baggage as well.
Exactly. Did PTSD or any of that factor into with your service? Or?
I didn't. After I came back when I was in Iraq, the first deployment, I was talking to a guy. And so, I'm at a staff headquarters. Mm-hmm. Pretty much every deployment, I'm at a headquarters. Well, the first time in Iraq, one of the guys, Lieutenant Colonel, Special Forces guy, was telling me, said, you think this isn't affecting you because you're not out shooting at people, you're not out seeing people get shot. But he said, you're gonna go home, and at some point down the road, you're gonna curl up into the fetal position, and you're just gonna cry, and it's gonna hit you from out of nowhere, and you're not even gonna see it coming, and you won't probably recognize it when it happens. And I'm like, oh, you're crazy, and I'm not feeling that much stress over here. Well, I really didn't feel like I was actively feeling the stress. But after I got back home, months later, I didn't curl up in a fetal position, but I do remember feeling a lot of anxiety and depression. Coming home, I came back in January. So it was that 4th of July, one of my daughters and I were driving back to the house through the neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. And 4th of July fireworks.
Fireworks, right.
Those little plastic, they look like hand grenades, but there's like a firecracker inside. Mm-hmm. I had just turned the corner and saw the trash, the hand grenade, the plastic hand grenade, which was smashed flat. But I just winced and caught my breath as I drove over it. Not that I experienced anything like that when I was over there, because in Iraq, I really didn't go outside. If I went outside, I was in an aircraft. But the visual stimulation is you're getting ready to drive over a hand grenade. When I went out jogging, and there would be trash and boxes.
You want to go look through the trash?
Oh no! I just want to get past it as fast as I can because it's an IED.
Right.
And so those little things, yeah, they'll mess with you.
They're in your brain forever, probably. Yeah. What was interesting when we were talking earlier is you told me a story about your son-in-law.
Yeah. So I talked the military up to the kids, all of them, nieces and nephews and all that. And so I was talking to my son-in-law, and there's a lot of benefits to being in, especially the reserve, if you don't want to go active duty. You know, you get insurance now, you get some benefits and all those kind of things. And so he finally decided he thought that'd be a good idea and enlisted in the Navy Reserve. And beginning of May, we went up when he was shipping. We all went up for his oath of enlistment and ship from MEPS, like you did with your daughter, right? Well, I said, hey, I'd like to do the swearing in. And since, you know, rank sometimes has its privileges, and I'm a colonel, they said, Roger. So
You know, when you first told me that, I thought 32 years, he swore in his son-in-law, he's got to be at least a colonel.
yeah, it was cool. So I did the oath of enlistment for my son-in-law, and it was 9 other people. There was 10 total, and it was a totally off-the-cuff kind of thing. I mean, I said, check with your recruiter and see if I can do that for you, because I'd really like to. He said, sure, you know, yeah, they can do that. And so we went up there and said, hey, sir, if you want to say a few words, you got the podium. And so, you know, the lady that was helping to run that ceremony part of it, and there's family lined up on the walls, and the enlistees are all there, the recruits, and she's got them all dressed right and alignment, and then call the room to attention, and they have me come in, and I go up and put them at ease, and I say a few words about the adventure they're getting ready to embark on, whether it's Army or Navy or Air Force or Marines. It's going to be an adventure, and that was really neat. It was nice to be able to share that with my son-in-law. In fact, he just graduated from basic on Thursday, and we drove back from Chicago, got back late last night. So I was there for his graduation, and since I'm a colonel, I got to go up on the dais and sit up there with the other VIPs, and my daughter was there with me, and his mom and grandma. So we got the comfortable chairs for the graduation.
Now you're talking about him on film.
That's right.
On YouTube, social media. That's great. Wow. Okay, so before we end this, is there anything you'd like to say to the people? Because we have men and women serving right now in many areas of the world.
Yeah.
Some probably the people, average person in America really doesn't really know. Many of them in harm's way. What would you say to them?
Well, to my brothers and sisters, I would say hang in there. What you're doing is important, whether it feels that way or not, and whether anybody ever really acknowledges your contributions or not. You and I and the people that you're there with know what they are, and the people that you help when you're there know what they are. So, you know, stay faithful and enjoy even the difficult circumstances, because it's all valuable. That's what I'd say.
Okay, and one more thing I was thinking about, we did talk a little bit about this. There's like a very large percentage, I don't remember the percentage you said, of the American population that really has no experience. That was me.
Right.
Before, I mean, my brother was in the Air Force a long time ago, but I wasn't around then.
Right.
So I had no idea what that was all about, other than he's in the Air Force, right? But there's a large percentage of the American people that really have no experience. But it'd be helpful if they could reach out, you know, and maybe there's organizations they could help, care packages, letters. Why don't you
Well, they're
talk
all,
to them?
and I would say all of those organizations, whether it's VFW, American Legion, I mean, there's so many organizations out there. Make contact with them and find out what you can do. That number we were talking about, you know, World War II, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 million people in service. Right now, the active Army is under 500,000. Everybody put together is maybe 1 million. And during World War II, roughly 40% of the United States population was directly affected, served, knew someone that served, had a family member that served in that 5 years of conflict. 4 years, I guess, almost 5. In Vietnam, in 8 years of conflict, it was roughly 20% of the people that either served or knew someone that served or had a family member. In the 15 years that we've been fighting the global war on terror, the statistic that I saw was somewhere around 0.5% have been directly affected, know someone, have family that's
So
been
99% of the American population.
Yeah.
But that little 1%, or half of 1%, is keeping us safe.
Doing
And the
what
first-
we can.
Right, and the first responders.
Right.
Right. I know later this year we're going to be doing a program with first responders, actually at a football game, college
Excellent.
football game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something we need to remember them too.
Yeah.
I always, when I'm out, when I see somebody in uniform, sometimes I'll see somebody that looks like they're in uniform. I'll say, "Did you serve?" And just hold my hand and thank
I
them.
get a lot of thanks when I'm in uniform for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So
Well, it should be like that. I remember when I'd be with my dad once in a while, he was served in World War II. He'd always have a World War II hat on.
mhm.
And whenever he saw anybody in the military, he would just make a beeline for them. And he'd hold out his hands. "I'm Richard Calvert." He said, "Thank you for your service." And that's where I got that from.
Well, there's a connection there.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter which conflict. There's a connection.
right. Great. Well, thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate you
sir.
taking the time.
I
Glad to have met you
appreciate
here at the Indian Creek Community Church
Yeah.
today.
My privilege to help you out.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
Thanks.
Well, folks, once again, we're here. We're actually here in Olathe, Kansas. We have some more video episodes coming up. And one of the people that you saw at the very beginning of the program, we're going to be talking with a little more extensively, Eric Chia. When I first started, suggestion was made to me to start the talk show, I didn't really know what to do, didn't know anything about websites or anything like that, but I knew Eric. And I called Eric, and he has been involved with this, mostly behind the scenes, for over 10 years. And he is chiaweb.com. We're going to have a whole new look on talkingwithheroes.com very soon. There's going to be a lot of videos on there to make it easier for you all to pick out which videos you want to see. And then there's two other guys I want to mention. Bill Wisniewski, 8-9 years, maybe longer than that. I mean, he's been with me, helping me with this on too. He's a retired Army Special Forces. He has been filming at Fort Benning for Airborne Association for about 15 years. Any of you out there watching, you've been through any of the airborne programs at all. When you finish, there'll be a table set up there, and there have pictures available for your families and videos. That's Bill. He's been doing that, and I'll tell people that, and they'll go, "Yeah, I think I met him," right? And then Colin Clark, just amazing. GreenOxPallets.com. He's in Colorado. Amazing pallets that they've developed that will eventually, from what he's telling me, with these big corporations he's meeting with, will eventually eliminate wooden pallets. Which is so many of them in the junkyards and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank them for this. So we'll be back, folks. Also, one more thing: please share these videos with everybody you can. And there's many of you doing that. I see a lot of the same names. We're hoping to grow that. We have over 370,000 that have watched one or more of our videos from Iraq and Afghanistan, and videos since. That's all word of mouth. And so if you like what you're seeing here, please share the video. We'll have them on YouTube. We'll have them on all our social media sites. So thank you very much to all of our men and women who are serving. Thank you for your service. Be safe. Stay alert. We look forward to you coming back soon. God bless you all. God bless America.